Welcome, everyone. As some of you may be new to us, we welcome you for joining us. We welcome everyone this morning. Parkinson Social Network, for those of you who may not know, is a nonprofit charity, completely volunteer run. We have no paid staff. We're all volunteers. All of us have a personal connection to Parkinson's disease. We run virtual programs every month, typically 3 times a month. And we welcome everyone, people with PD, people who care about them, care partners. So we're glad you're here. Our speaker today is Cassidy Gagnon. She is a physical therapist at the Virginia Hospital Center, working with outpatients who have neurological challenges. She works with a lot of people who have Parkinson's disease. She will be sharing her presentation with slides, which we will share with you after the program with her permission. And I'm going to let Cassidy introduce herself and get us started. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Nancy. Hi, everybody. So today I'm going to be talking about Parkinson's home adaptations and exercise. So going to the next slide. Thank you. So just a little bit more about me. I am born and raised in Leesburg, Virginia, so not too far away. I now live in Arlington, Virginia. And as Nancy had mentioned, I work at Virginia Hospital Center, primarily with the neurological population. Some of my hobbies, I grew up doing gymnastics for 18 years of my life. And then after that, kind of transitioned to weightlifting and some rock climbing. My undergraduate degree was at Virginia Tech, where I got a bachelor's of science in human nutrition, food, and exercise with a minor in psychology. And then my graduate was at University of Delaware, where I got a master's of science in anatomy and clinical health science in 2020. And then my doctorate of physical therapy in 2021. And I've been at Virginia Hospital Center ever since. And so as I go through this presentation, just a little bit of information, I recognize that we have people that have Parkinson's, that we have family members, caregivers. As I'm going through, I'm just gonna kind of say things as a you, recognizing that that can extend to any person that this information applies to. So I just wanted to make sure that that was kind of clear moving forward. All right, next slide, please. Thank you. So my objectives of this whole presentation is I'm going to be talking about various adaptive equipment. I'm going to talk about self-care tools and modifications that you can make. I will talk about strategies to combat common symptoms of Parkinson's disease. I'll go through a few of the assisted device options. And then the last topic is I'll get into the importance of exercise, what you should incorporate with exercises, and how to do them safely. So first topic is the strategies to combat the common symptoms that you get with Parkinson's disease. So the first one being medication timing and dosage. So when put on Parkinson's medications, like specifically for the Parkinson's, the most common is that carbidopa levodopa. Usually there's going to be a very strict medication schedule that you talk about with your neurologist. I've seen patients have it every 3 hours, every 4 hours, every 6 hours. But regardless of that schedule that was discussed, it is very important to be taking it at the same time every day, because the goal of these medications is to reduce the symptoms, whether that is shuffling, freezing, rigidity, tremors, whatever you may experience from the Parkinson's disease, this medication is trying to reduce that. And so as with all medications, there is a period of time where they need to take effect. And then there's also a wearing off period. And so the goal of this very strict schedule is you're trying to keep your body in basically like a steady state where you're reducing the symptoms and maximizing your function throughout the day. So if you're not consistent, you can experience more of that wearing off time of the medications, where you could be potentially at a higher risk of falls based on or depending on the severity of the symptoms that you experience. And so then when talking about the dosage of them, it's very important to be talking with your doctor. Of course, you want the lowest dose that helps with your symptoms and minimizes the side effects. And so that is very important for regular communication with your neurologist to make sure that, one, you're taking your medications as scheduled and that you're getting the maximum benefit from them that you want and need, while also reducing the potential side effects. And then the last thing to note with medication and timing is being cognizant of not taking your medication around meals that involve a bunch of protein, because protein can actually affect the absorption of the medications, and that can make it so that they are less beneficial for your body. And so generally you want to leave about 1 to 2 hours before and after taking the medication to consume a lot of protein in your meal or a snack. So it can take a lot of kind of scheduling around it, but it is important if you want to maximize the effects of them. And then, of course, if there are any changes in your function or the side effects or anything like that, that's a very good indication to go back and talk to your neurologist about it. And then getting into exercise, I will talk more about that later. So I'm just going to hold on that one for now. Sleep or sleep hygiene. The primary goal with this is you want restful sleep at night, reducing naps during the day. And so you can kind of get in a cycle almost. Why I say reducing naps is because if you don't sleep well at night, you may take a long nap during the day. That can make it harder to then get asleep that night, and it kind of becomes a cycle. So the goal is function during the day, rest at night. And so if there are any sleeping concerns, such as muscle spasms can be really common in Parkinson's, that can make it very uncomfortable when trying to sleep. Or if there's any difficulties falling asleep or staying asleep, those are things that are good to talk to your doctor about. Maybe they will refer to a sleep study, or there are medications that they can give to help with the sleeping or help like a muscle relaxant with the spasms. So just knowing that there are good options out there to help to get more restful sleep, but also thinking about good habits when it comes to sleep. So that means limiting screen time for 1 to 2 hours before going to bed, limiting your water intake right before bed. Now, water is very important. We know it helps with hydration, with overall health and function, and especially with blood pressure when it comes to Parkinson's disease. But thinking about trying to have most of your water intake be in the morning, afternoon, and early evening, and reducing it right before bed. Because the last thing we want is having to get up and use the restroom 5, 6 times during the night, and that's going to be interrupting your sleep as well. We want to limit that. Maybe 1 to 2 is normal, but we want to prevent exacerbation, prevent that multiple times getting up. And then also limiting intense exercise right before bed. Those endorphins and doing exercise can actually wake you up, can make it harder to then relax to get to bed. Avoiding caffeine anywhere close to bedtime, and also avoiding laying in bed other than bedtime, because it's a way to kind of train your body that when you get in bed, it's time to go to sleep. If you're hanging out in bed doing other activities at other points of the day, it's hard for your body to dissociate between what is me just hanging out and what is it bedtime. And so this is a way to just kind of train your body that when you're in bed, it's time to sleep. And so some things that you can do: reading a book that can help get you to sleep, listening to meditative music, doing relaxing deep breathing, are all great strategies to help with that calming down your system to assist with getting into sleep. And then the worse the sleep is, the worse the symptoms can be, and vice versa. So we really want to make sure that you're getting enough sleep every night, that you're setting yourself up for success the next day. And then also the use of tools and strategies, which we'll talk about in the next couple slides. Any questions about any of those strategies before I move on to the tools?
Nothing has been posted, Cassidy, if you want to move on.
Okay, thank you. So next, we're going to talk about some adaptive equipment. My coworker, Christine, who's actually an OT, helped me to come up with some of these examples. And so the biggest thing that we wanted to emphasize was you want the clothes and tools to meet you where you are. And so these are some great examples. The first picture on the left being a pair of shoes or sneakers. This brand, Kizik, I have had a lot of my patients start raving about them. They look like a normal sneaker. They look like they have the laces on the front, but the idea of them is that they are a slip-in shoe. So you put your foot in it, and on the back of it, it has like a little rubber cage so that when you press your heel onto it, it acts like a spring and comes up behind your heel. And so it gets the shoe on just by slipping it in. And
I'm
so
sorry to interrupt.
that's okay.
Can I ask a question about sleep?
About sleep, absolutely.
How much is considered enough?
So that can be person dependent. As you age, you actually need less sleep. Generally, we want or look for anywhere from a like 7 to 10 hours a night of as consistent sleep as possible. So some people may be able to function closer to 7. Some people may need closer to 10 in order to get a restful amount, especially if you're waking up during the night, and then it takes a little bit to get back to sleep.
Well, we're having an issue with UTIs, so we've been getting up about every hour, hour and a half.
Okay.
So it's unrestful sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So until we finish the antibiotics, we can't have a restful night.
And that makes a lot of sense. That is kind of an unfortunate outstanding factor that is realistic. And so hopefully with the antibiotics that gets better, and recognizing that you may be a little bit more tired during the day, that the function may be a little bit harder, or maybe that is a time period that they do need a nap during the day, just to be able to have the energy levels to do what you need.
Thank you.
Of course.
We have a question too. This is Ed Giravasi. I'm Marie's caretaker. She's a side sleeper, and within 1 hour or 90 minutes wakes up because she has leg pains and she needs to shift and move to the other side. So she's sleeping on her other leg.
Okay.
This continues throughout the night. So we're waking up every hour to 90 minutes, 2 hours max, to reposition her.
Okay.
And it's driving us both nuts.
Yeah. When saying leg pain, is it like muscle spasms? Is it like a soreness or achiness?
Answer. What is it?
What is it?
Achiness or soreness? What is it?
I'd say it's achiness.
Okay. Are you putting a pillow between your legs when you're sleeping?
No, I used to do that, but I didn't find it comfortable.
Okay. So usually when putting a pillow in between your legs, and sometimes it just takes finding the right pillow.
Right.
If it's too hard or too soft, it may not do what you want, but that can just help put your hips in kind of a better alignment in order to sleep a little bit more comfortably. It could also be that maybe doing some stretching right before bedtime so that your muscles are kind of primed, so that they're not getting quite as tight, could also help.
And are there any mattress recommendations that are good for Parkinson's people?
That I honestly don't know of any that are specific to Parkinson's. I usually am very much a whatever is comfortable, that's what you should go with, because everybody has different preferences on softness, firmness. And so usually I say whatever helps you sleep, I'm game. Because everybody just has different preferences.
Cassidy,
And so, yes.
I'm sorry if I might add on the individual who has pains during sleep.
Mm-hmm.
If they haven't had, or if they've discussed it with their neurologist, and the neurologist is not indicating that it may be Parkinson's related, they may wish to contact a sleep specialist, because one of the things they do during a hospital-based outpatient sleep study is videotape your sleep. And the sleep specialist can see whether there are positioning issues that will help you with the pain.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Always discuss anything that you are experiencing with their doctor, with your doctor, and they can help refer you to the best place. Sleep studies are great. Okay. Any further questions? Hopefully that answered yours.
Thank you.
Thank you. So then, talking again about the shoes, these are great because again, the spring comes up over the back of your heel. And so it eliminates the need of having to bend down to put your shoes on, or having to use the fine motor skills of actually tying and untying laces, because they can just stay there. Um, and then it also reduces the need of needing something like a shoehorn, although that is a great option for maybe different pairs of shoes if you wanted options. But this one, the idea of it is that you slip in and it does the whole thing itself. And they're great, very stylish. I've heard people say they're super comfortable, come in a bunch of different colors. And
Are they only available online, Cassidy, or can you buy them at a store?
as far as I know, they're only online. Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm. And I will have at the end of my presentation, and these, as far as I know, are going to be available to you, of links to all of this equipment and exercise classes so that you guys will have access to them. And so the next picture is going to be a tub transfer chair. So the idea of this is that you sit on the edge, you scoot yourself back onto the chair, and then you lift your legs up and over the tub. And then you have that backrest so that when you're actually showering and doing your shower hygiene, you have a little bit more stability. And then coming out, it's just the reverse. And so this eliminates the need of having to stand and step over potentially a large tub or large obstacle, especially if the floors are likely going to be wet and causing a more slippery surface, more risk of falling. And so this is kind of a great option to make that transfer safer. If this is maybe unnecessary or it's too far advanced, also just the accessibility of grab bars. So maybe you are capable of stepping up and over, but just need that little bit of extra stability, automatically makes the transfer safer by having those positioned easily and where you don't have to reach for it. And then the last picture that I have on here is called a kettle tipper. And so that is exactly as it sounds. You can put your kettle or your jug into the device, and then it just helps you to tip it so that you're pouring your liquid into your cup. So that can help with tremors, that can help with any hand weakness and coordination in order to just make it an easier task. Next slide, please. And so then getting more into like self-care tools and modifications, here's a bunch of pictures. The leftmost being a bidet. So anybody that may need help with toileting hygiene, they're unable to wipe easily or effectively, a bidet, it just sprays water to help with that cleaning process. The OT, Christine, raves about them and recommends them to everybody because they're a really great device. The second one is button hooks. So that helps with the fine motor control needed to do a button-up shirt by basically just you put it through, you grab the button, and then you pull it through the hole. So it's a one-handed process. The third is a plate guard. And so that can just be put around your plate to reduce spills if you're walking with it or moving it around. The fourth being weighted utensils, because the weight in them can actually provide some sensory information and help reduce tremors when eating. And then the larger handle also just makes it easier to grip so that you can bring food from your plate to your mouth a little bit safer and more accurately. And then the last one being a dressing hook. So that helps with putting on any jackets or button ups for somebody that may not be able to reach behind their back to grab the jacket and get their arms in. And then you can go to the next slide. Thank you. Lastly, when talking about assisted devices, there are so many different options. There's pros and cons for all of them. And this is something that working with a PT to assess which one is best to help with the overall goals, which is maintaining upright posture, having the most stability, and safety are going to be key. So just going through some of the common ones, the cane. So you see in that middle picture, there is a single point and there's what's called a quad cane. The single point cane is going to be the less stable of all the options. So that is generally going to be for somebody that has some instability, but it's not significant yet. They may use it for something like hikes or uneven terrain or long distances, but generally don't need a device for walking around their house. That's just that little bit of extra support or stability or confidence. Whereas the quad cane does provide a little bit more stability. You can put a little bit more weight into it. The pros of both of those is that you do, since it's in one hand, you do have one hand free to carry things around your house or wherever it is. So it's a little bit more functional. Versus the left picture are walking sticks or hiking poles. I've had a bunch of people have great success with these. You can use it either in both hands or in one hand. The benefit of one hand is, of course, just like the cane, you have a hand free to do anything that you need to do. The benefit of both hands is you have stability on both sides of you. And pros of these versus like a cane or a walker is I've had people really help with being upright because they are a little bit taller. The only issue with these is that sometimes it requires a higher level of coordination to use them both effectively. So to coordinate it with your steps can take some practice and something that a PT can help with. And then lastly, getting into the rolling walker, which is that two-wheeled one on the right. The back ones are just going to be poles. So this is going to probably be the most stable option. The not having the wheels on the back acts a little bit like a brake. But the con, I would say, is that it requires both arms. And so you have the most stability for somebody that maybe has the most balance concerns, but you can't carry anything. So maybe bringing a glass or a plate from the kitchen to the kitchen table is going to be more challenging. Versus the roll later, which is the picture all the way to the right, that has 4 different wheels. Usually those have a seat. And so it's a great place that you can rest if going on longer walks, or you can place your plate right on the seat to be able to move it around your house. But because it's 4 wheels, you got to have a certain level of control to use the brakes so that it doesn't fly out from underneath you. So being able to walk upright without those wheels going too fast can also be something that just takes some practice. And so, like I said, these are ones that it's great to work with somebody like a PT to decide what is best for you to meet those ultimate goals. And then the last topic, I think I see a question in the chat. Up the walk.
Actually, Cassidy, I think Kathleen was making a comment. I'll read it out. It says, I can't pick up or walk with a 4-prone cane as it is heavy, but they also make a little cup that looks like a suction cup type on the end of the cane, which is very stable yet light.
Yes, so those are also, they're called a hurricane. Those are a great kind of in between because it makes it so that the cane can stand up by itself, which a single point cane can't. Usually those suctions and the mechanism of that makes it so it can rotate and kind of form to whatever ground you're standing on, if it's a little curved or inclined, so that the whole prong stays on the ground. So it does add that little bit more stability. So that is a great option that I didn't comment on. So thank you, Kathleen. Okay, then the last topic is getting into exercise. So exercise is the single most important thing with Parkinson's disease to maintain function, quality of life, independence, and also slow down the disease progression as much as possible. And so all the exercise types I'm going to talk about is with these goals in mind. And so it's very important to consider that all of it has to be at an appropriate intensity to meet these goals, which I'll talk about what that means. And so for the sake of time, I'm going to be talking very generally about all of these types. because they could be broken down and taken into their own complete presentations, but it's just a way of helping you to recognize what to focus on, or maybe talk about with a trainer or a PT or whoever it may be. So the types of exercises is going to be aerobic training, such as cardiovascular or heart or endurance training. There's going to be resistance training, which is going to be like a muscle strength. And then there's going to be balance training as well. Next slide, please. That skipped one ahead. Thank you. Okay. So first, getting into the aerobic training or cardio. So the recommendation for this is 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity. And so I will, again, I'll get into the intensity part of it, but I do not expect anybody to meet this recommendation right off the bat if it's not something that they were already doing. So the goal is to achieve this. I usually try to aim for at least 3 times a week of some form of aerobic training, and I have a list of examples coming up. With the goal of trying to get to at least 30 minutes of continuous or intermittent exercise, like a HIIT style workout per session. And so ultimately building up to that 150 minutes per week. But I, when working with my patients, really try to meet them where they're at. I have some patients who love to go to the gym every day, but can only tolerate 10 minutes on the rower. And so we start with that. Okay, see if you can get 5 days a week. Sorry, excuse me. But 10 minutes each time. If you can tolerate that, next week, maybe we'll try for 12 minutes each time. Versus somebody else who maybe can only go to the gym 2 to 3 times a week right now, but they can do 20 to 30 minutes when they're there. Great place to start. Now let's see how can we incorporate into your schedule in the future, getting some more into your weekly schedule to try to meet these recommendations. So I really try to help meet people where they're at and don't expect them to go from little exercise maybe to 150 minutes a week, because that's a lot. And so then when talking about intensity for somebody that maybe doesn't exercise as much right now, we could start with moderate. And so I will talk about heart rate and I'll talk about what RPE is in the next slides. But that could still be very difficult for them, and that's still getting benefit. And the goal is to build up to vigorous. So just trying to work your way to this duration of 150 or 75 minutes. And so when getting into heart rate specifically, it is a calculation based on age and based on intensity of your exercise. So you can measure that with any type of smartwatch. It could be Apple Watch, Fitbit, Garmin. There are some cheap ones off Amazon. You can use a pulse ox. You can use on the equipment. Sometimes they'll have those metal bars that are like heart rate sensors. So those are great. Or I put a blood pressure machine. That's not the ideal because it requires you to sit down and rest to actually take the blood pressure. And it's only one measure versus actually throughout the exercise. But the way you read this chart, I know it's a little bit small. If we have an example of somebody that is 50 years old, so that is the bottom of it. And then you go up on the right, it shows you what percentage they're at. On the left, it's looking at your heart rate. So just to get to 50% of their max, they need to get their heart rate up about 85 to 90 beats per minute. And then upwards of 105. So anywhere between 85 and 105 is considered their moderate level activity, versus their vigorous can get anywhere upwards of 150. And so it is okay to be increasing your heart rate that is safe, and recognizing it needs to get pretty high to be getting that benefit that you actually want in your endurance. And then also recognizing at the top, there is a maximum or a no-go zone. So there is a point where your heart rate is getting too high. And if you think of it like a muscle in your body, you don't want to go and lift something that's far too heavy, higher than your max, because you could hurt yourself. It's the same thing with your heart. If you're doing too much, that heart muscle can hurt itself. So it's finding that right range, anywhere from that 60 to that 85%, depending on what you can tolerate. And hopefully all of that makes sense. If not, please ask questions.
Yeah, Cassidy, this
Yes.
is Ed Giravasi again. I have a question.
Yes.
Not only does Marie have Parkinson's, she also has fibromyalgia. How
Okay.
does she deal with this, trying to raise heart rate when she has these issues?
Does it cause pain when she tries to do the exercise?
Yes, yeah, and I have pain afterwards, and I usually ice after I exercise because it hurts.
What are you trying to do for the exercise?
What do you mean?
What do you do to exercise? What exercises?
Well, I do the SAIL program. I know you're familiar with SAIL.
Are you familiar with the SAIL program?
SAIL? I am not.
It's a staying active for independent living. It
Okay.
incorporates aerobics and balance and some resistance training.
Okay.
It's very
And-
good.
But she winds up, being achy afterwards.
Okay. And is it something that lasts for the rest of the day to where it's hard to function later on?
No, it depends. Not lately. It depends just how much I do in addition to the exercise.
Okay.
Whatever I
So-
do around the house or.
But she cannot get this heart rate up that high.
Mm-hmm. And so for a situation like that, where you have the Parkinson's, but also with the fibromyalgia, I would take that into account first. So I would never push you to the point that you are in a bunch of pain that it's hard to function later. I would start with what can you tolerate that makes it so you can function for whatever else you have to do that day. And the goal is gradual increase. So if you do X amount today and you're feeling okay, I'm okay with some level of achiness, not to the point that you can't do your daily activities later. And so working up to maybe you did this much today and felt good. Okay, what can we try next week? That's just that little bit more to work your way up to this.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
How do you bring up a heart rate when someone has constant vertigo going on and retropulsion? How do you
Okay.
deal with someone dealing with exercise with that?
Absolutely. And I do have a list of a bunch of examples. Hold that question for right now. And if I don't
Okay.
answer it, then we can talk through some more.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Cassidy,
Yes.
with respect to fibromyalgia, which I have had for 65 years, my rheumatologist has given me some advice about the types of exercise that I can use for increasing the heart rate will have a minimum effect on the fibromyalgia. And there are also some medications that can be used. So I would strongly suggest that the person who brought the question up have another conference with their rheumatologist about that aspect.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Any further, or should I move on? Okay, sounds like I can move on to the next
You want me
slide.
to advance the
Yeah.
slide?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And just to let everybody know while Cassidy gets ready for the slide, she is making her slides available if you missed that note at the beginning. So we will email those out to you post presentation.
Yes. And so then this slide for RPE, it is called rate of perceived exertion. So this is a way you can measure how hard you may be working if unable to measure heart rate. So maybe you don't have any of those devices available or on a medication like a beta blocker that makes it so the heart rate is not as affected by exercise. So this is a 1 to 10 scale. What each of the numbers means is on the right of it. And so moderate is indicating that you're starting to breathe heavy. You can hold a conversation, but it's still somewhat comfortable, but it's becoming more challenging. Versus vigorous is that borderline uncomfortable. And I talk to a lot of my patients about that borderline uncomfortable aspect and how it is safe usually to be getting up to that point. So what I will do is when my patients come in, we'll choose some type of aerobic activity. And I will be monitoring their heart rate. At the same time, I'm showing them this chart. And so then that way, when their heart rate is getting up to where we want, and we're also comparing it to this chart, they can actually feel what does a 5 mean? What does a 6 mean? What does a 7 mean? And so when giving this chart for home, I generally circle those numbers anywhere from that 5 to 7, because that's that sweet spot that we want you to recreate later on. So this is just a way of checking in on yourself as you're doing this exercise. Am I working as hard as I want to be working? Next slide, please. So getting into the examples. So for somebody that maybe has the vertigo or can't be walking a long distance, maybe they can't walk fast enough to get their heart rate up. Something like a new step, a recumbent bike are great options. They're sitting and they're moving your legs. And so then that way you're not getting a ton of stimulation to your head in terms of movements around you. And you're in one set location, but you are still working your legs. You're still working a way of getting your heart rate up. There's also, of course, treadmill, if that's what you prefer. I have moving sit to stands on here. Maybe you don't have any equipment, and just simply doing your sit to stand, set up a chair across the room, walk to that chair and do it again, and just keep repeating back and forth. It can be a great way for some people to get their heart rate up just by repeated motions. Boxing in place, walking, sitting, whatever is safe for you or the family member is probably one of the best exercises that can be done for Parkinson's disease. It works on power, it works on cardio, it works on full body strength. So that is a great option. There is repeated bed mobility for maybe somebody that doesn't have the equipment or isn't safe to do a bunch of walking. Lying down and sitting up in bed can get people's heart rate up very quickly. HIIT workouts, that's called high intensity interval training. So the idea of this is a period of 10 to 30 seconds of heavy activity, followed by 10 to 30 seconds of a rest. So that could be doing exercises like in this picture. So jumping jacks, high knees, your sit to stands, a lunge, a squat, anything like that, followed by a period of rest. Or if you're on something like a stationary bike, a treadmill, you could do intervals such as going really fast and then going slow, going on a high interval or incline versus a low incline, or increasing the resistance really high on something like a bike and then doing a period of low resistance. And so HIIT workouts are great for anybody, especially someone that may not be able to tolerate 10 minutes of consecutive exercise at one time. It's a way of building up that tolerance and endurance with getting those rests in between. And then some other examples, rowing machines, dancing, Pilates. I am a big advocate for whatever motivates you and that you have fun with, and it gets your heart rate up, you're doing well. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. It is whatever will make you want to do it every day versus feeling like a burden that you have to do. So we want you to enjoy this exercise. We want you to feel good afterwards. So that is kind of my primary goal with providing so many examples. Hopefully that helped a little bit with the vertigo question.
They didn't follow up in the chat, Cassidy, so.
Okay. So then getting into resistance or strength training, the recommendations are challenging all major muscle groups on non-consecutive days. So if you were to break that up simply into arms, legs, and core or abdomen, that is just doing it on different days of the week. So Monday and Tuesday shouldn't both be leg days, and then Wednesday, Thursday shouldn't be arm days. Your muscles do need rest as well. So if you're training to the point that you are getting tired, your muscles generally need a rest day the next day. Now, there is some exceptions, like if you're doing a full body workout, it's okay to do a full body workout maybe twice in a row, making sure you're giving yourself those rest days as well. So just the general idea is that you don't want to be strength training hard every single day. And then it must be progressive. So what I mean by that is it needs to be hard by the end of your set. So anywhere from 6 to 12 repetitions of an exercise is generally a good range. You want it difficult by the end of those repetitions. So if you're somebody that can grab some 5-pound dumbbells and you can do 30 curls in a row, then it's probably not strengthening you. So that means maybe go up to an 8-pounder, maybe go up to a 10-pounder, something that by the 10th one, your muscles are tired and need a rest, and building up to 3 sets of that. Hopefully that part of it makes sense. And so then thinking about, okay, you found your perfect weight, you can do 10 pounds for 10 reps and your biceps are tired by the end. Now, if you do that consistently for say 6 months, then it's no longer probably as difficult. So that means that you need to keep increasing how much you're doing if you want to continue getting stronger and stronger. So what is your hard right now is probably not going to also be your hard in 6 months if you're consistent with it. Does that part make sense? Okay. Next slide, please. So then some examples. Oh, I think we skipped one ahead. Is any type of strength machines in the gym. All of them are great. It's an easy way to start increasing how much weight you're doing. HIIT circuits, again, but with weights. Getting just on and off the floor is a very functional movement. It works on full body strengthening, of course, taking into consideration safety. So if you haven't been on the floor in a while, I don't want you getting on without somebody nearby, and also near like a couch or a bed, something to help you get back up if needed. Other things like walking with an overhead carry. So like that picture on the bottom right, or moving sit-to stands, just like I talked about with the cardio. Add a dumbbell and reach overhead, and now you have an arm strength and a cardio workout at the same time. Sit-to stands with a jump gets a little bit of power into there. That ball on wall is just throwing a weighted ball against the wall. Now you're getting some balance as well. Picking items up off the floor is, again, something that is very functional and also can make you stronger. Next slide, please. And so then last topic is getting into balance and then / gait and walking. So for this, that is usually going to be from the assistance of a PT or OT to really help give an assessment, decide what's important and what to focus on for exercise, and also what's safe. But the recommendation is that you're getting 2 to 3 days a week of focus practice. So that means doing those specific exercises with daily integration. So that could be going on a walk outside where the surface may be a little bit uneven. That could be doing like stepping over kids' toys that may be on the floor of your house, anything like that. Next slide, please. But I did provide some balance examples that are very easy to incorporate into your routine. Something as simple as a single leg balance near your counter, trying to stand on one leg as long as you can. Ball toss back and forth. You could be sitting, you could be standing, or you could be walking, is a great way of working on 2 things and working on your balance. Uneven surfaces like standing on a pillow, a blanket, a towel, putting yourself in a corner of a room so that you have walls on either sides of you is a safe way of practicing that. And things like walking with head turns. So if you go on a walk outside or in the grocery store, you can scan your environment so that you're able to take in everything that's going on around you. And then one more slide is the last one. Thank you. So if you do need any help with exercise, assistance from a PT and OT are always great resources. Throughout the progression that you may experience with Parkinson's, it's always great to check back in with us every so often so that we can do reassessments and we can update your program to help you as much as possible. Always access to a gym and or gym equipment is really helpful for being able to get these goals that you want. Of course, not necessary by any means, but if possible, a personal trainer is always just a great resource, even if it's just to teach you how to use gym equipment safely in like a single session so that you feel comfortable going and using and doing all of the exercise. And then also group classes. There are great ones that are specific to Parkinson's that could be potentially fun and enjoyable throughout the week.
Cassidy,
Yes.
this is Ed Giravasi. I have a question on the prior slide.
Yes.
Yeah. Stairs, reducing UE. What is UE?
Sorry, upper extremity support. So reducing how much you're using your arms.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Sorry, I should have fixed that.
Cassidy, would you like me to change that before I print the slides out?
That would be great.
And on this slide, would you like me to change the second bullet to access from assess?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Cassidy, did you want to mention anything about the big program for people with PD?
So we at Virginia Hospital Center, we do not use the big program.
Okay.
We use some parts of it in terms of emphasizing big and powerful and exaggerated movements, but the research is kind of pointing away of it a little bit. And so we are taking some of the ideas because they do really help with the symptoms, but we don't implement big itself.
Okay. I just, I wasn't sure how many people have heard of it and getting, like updated guidance professionally may be helpful for people so they can, if they hear about it, it can determine whether it's something to consider.
Yeah. So it is called LSDT Big for anybody that hasn't heard of it. There are therapists out there that are certified in the program. I believe it is 3 times a week for 12 weeks is considered the program itself. I could be wrong in the amount of times per week. But the emphasis of it is big and exaggerated movements and speaking loudly and basically trying to combat all of the symptoms of Parkinson's where the rigidity, the slow moving, or the lower speech comes in.
Where are the group classes held specific to Parkinson's? At
Yes,
VHC, elsewhere? Where else?
That is if we scoot forward a couple slides where I have all the resource links, I have a list of some of them. So this is everything that I talked about in terms of equipment and in terms of classes.
Okay.
So if any of them was interesting to you guys.
Terrific.
So there's in-person, there's virtual, there's a YouTube channel.
Good. Thank you.
Of course.
And the slides, when they are distributed, will be in PDF form, so you'll be able to click on those links.
Can you save the slides or you cannot do that?
No, we'll be emailing them to you.
Right, but once they arrive,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
There'll be attachments that you can save.
Thank you.
Yep. And when you get access to them, I do have on the questions page my work email. So if anybody has any questions, I also do have my own personal side business where I do training and physical fitness, either at people's homes or whatever gym that they go to. So I put that email on there as well.
How easy is it to get an appointment with you at VHC?
Generally, we run about a 1-month wait for an eval. If you reach out to me whenever it's available, I can try to look at my schedule and try to block something as soon as I can.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for me?
Got a question.
Will insurance pay for it?
Yeah, well, if we come for PT, our insurance will cover it, but I don't know about the personal attention you offer, whether they cover that or not.
Did you have a question in that for Cassidy?
Yeah, I mean, I know that when we go to PT at like the hospital or any PT function like Jackson Clinic or whatever it might be, insurance will pay for that. I'm not so sure they would pay for you to visit us at home and do that kind of thing.
That one, no, unfortunately, that is more of a cash-based.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions for Cassidy? People want to either put a question in the chat or unmute if they don't want to ask it.
I was going to say, one thing people have to recognize is the fact that PT in a formal situation or what you're trying to do at home, you've got to accept the fact that it's a matter of quarter inch rather than big 1 foot chunks of, okay, I'm going to do this X amount of time and I'm going to, don't set your expectations high, because the whole theory is to build slowly and get it built right rather than trying to force muscles and do things that your body isn't quite ready for.
Mhm.
And I know that's one of the frustrating things about going to PT. They have you walking your fingers up a wall. It's like big whoop, but it works.
Mhm. And that is a perfect point, Arlene, that I didn't mention, is a lot of times trying to avoid what I call that crash as well. So people get super motivated, they increase maybe their daily activity like double or triple fold, but then the next day feeling like they can't get out of bed. And so it's finding that gradual progression that keeps you moving, keeps you functional, and keeps you enjoyed in what you're doing. And it can be a journey to do, but those gradual progressions mean a lot.
Well, it certainly is the best way to build yourself up,
Mhm.
because you've got a stable base that you're building from. The other way, you may build it up, but whether you're going to be able to hold it or just go crashing back down to where you were is something totally different.
Mhm.
Other comments or questions?
I guess I have another one, and that is when you're working with a client, whether it's at the hospital or privately, do you limit yourself to, quote, exercise, or do you provide any guidance on, let's say, getting a healthier lifestyle to go along with what would be a healthier body?
Mm-hmm. And we try to be all encompassing. So I have spent numerous amount of time talking with patients about their water intake, about their nutrition, we've spent whole sessions just building themselves a weekly schedule of what does your day-to-day look like? How do we incorporate your exercise to make this so that it is a lifestyle change and that it is like feasible and doable for the person. We talk about medications in a lot of sessions. And so we try to make sure that we're not just tailoring to exercise, because all these things factor in. Right before the session, I was talking with my patient with Parkinson's about his sleep and how he didn't sleep a wink last night. And so contacting the sleep doctor and seeing if he can get another study done or if there's anything else that they can help to provide. So we want to make sure that we are very well-rounded in our treatment strategies.
That's good to know.
Thank you. Any last questions before Cassidy returns to her day job?
Cassidy, where are you located?
I'm at Virginia Hospital Center in Arlington in their outpatient neuro side.
How far is Arlington from Charlottesville?
From where?
Charlottesville. How
Char-
far is Arlington from
Charlottesville?
Right.
That
Yes.
is about 2 hours, about 2 to 2.5 hours.